Our next guest has been an anti-racist activist since 1965. She has been a pro-abortion feminist since 1969, and she was a founding member of the collective that established the Feminist Women's Health Centers across California. She was for many years the executive director, and she still is on the board. I'm very happy to bring as a guest on the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show, Carol Downer. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Sunsara.
Wonderful. I also count you as a friend and a longtime collaborator in the fight for women's right to abortion, as well as other things. And that brings us to what we want to get into. There's obviously so much that we could talk about your work over many years. But today, the occasion of this interview is you wrote a very powerful piece responding to the recent spate of unprincipled, scurrilous, libelous attacks on Rise Up for abortion rights on TheRevcoms, on myself, and on Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader. And you brought to bear your really decades of experience working with the Revolutionary Communist Party and TheRevcoms from your own perspective. I wanted to start by asking you why you felt compelled to go into print and to take on these attacks.
Well, first and foremost, they were so blatantly based on absolutely not an iota of fact. I mean, it's just baseless and so full of, hostility and vengefulness. It almost made you wonder, what was their real motive, especially in this time of when we're trying to respond to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I mean, after all, there are, we're this country swinging to the right so fast that it makes you dizzy. And, we know that communists are always first, to attack.
Or to be attacked.
So naive as to not think that if they did have a problem, to solve it in a way that would not, expose not just you, but all communist organizations in our country that are working for social reform to who knows, now that everybody can carry hidden guns and the way has been paved for them. It's just the most reckless thing that I had run across, and that I felt it had to be responded to.
Well, I think it was very important that you did. And right up front, you say that these 23 organizations that attacked Rise Up for abortion rights, that claimed that it was a pyramid scheme for the RevComs, funneling money towards the RevCom leadership, and attack Bob Avakian as a cult leader and this kind of thing. It did need to be rebutted, and you're right, it is profoundly dangerous. In the opening of your rebuttal, you say, I want to speak to this as somebody who's worked closely with the RevComs in different capacities over the years. I wonder if you could share some of your experiences and what you draw from that and how you bring that to bear in refuting these allegations.
Gladly, because, the health centers, in addition to establishing and running abortion clinics around the country, we also, like the RCP, we are engaged in a number of issues. We don't just work on the issue of abortion. We also work on, allied reproductive health things, but we also fight against police abuse, and we fight against, racism and, forced sterilization and all kinds of issues that come up that affect, all of us. And that's where I have always had our group's always had a lot in common with the RCP because, we found ourselves working with you many, many times. And you've come to our political educations every year. I remember with the, the Break the Chains contingent of, feminists in RCP that came, that Becky Chalker and I went to Iran with the RCP in 1979. And this was when the revolution had just happened, and the RCP hosted our trip to demand the hostages back. And so I got to see the international facets of the RCP too. And, I was very amazed and very impressed the international organization. And of course, over the years, it's been refuse and resist, and now, of course, you have and stop patriarchy, and also now with this current pro-abortion organization, and for some reason that seems to seem shady to people. I don't know why, because for one thing, it's extremely transparent, and it's very effective. And sometimes it's protesting. Like in the instant case here, you folks, in Rise Up, have done a lot of very, very dramatic posting, which they seem to somehow envy you, because the fact that you've actually managed to get tremendous response. I know here at the LA Times, you're featured, the photographs, abortion now, and without apology, it's just stock footage now on the LA Times. Whenever they cover an abortion issue, it's not only you, but something from one of your demonstrations. This they somehow want to twist that into something nefarious. And they want to make the fact that you have a leader, somebody who you, as a group, look to provide inspiration and guidance and so forth. What about that is nefarious? And I certainly have never found people in the party or in any of the committee groups that you form, any kind of mindless, followership. People are very open to discuss matters. And I'm a very contentious person myself, and I love to get into discussions. And I like to be challenged. I don't mind having to prove where I'm drawing my thinking from. And I find that to be true with RCP members that many over the years have become friends, but all very esteemed, colleagues. And I think this is got to be shown in the light of reality.
When you spoke, you said also, you don't mind being challenged in your thinking. You don't mind having an argument. Is this the right way to approach this question, or is it the wrong way to understand it? Having that struggle over substance, which I think is very important and very different than the culture today of canceling people you disagree with, internet attacks, tearing them down, spreading lies and slanders, which then get picked up in the media. And this is actually a hallmark as well of Bob Avakian, to get into the substance of the problems in the world and how to solve them, and the method to come at this. And in your letter, you also say you've heard Bob Avakian speak, you've read his work. I wonder if you want to comment some on the accusation that he's a cult leader up against what you've actually experienced.
Well, I run the risk of being called a zombie myself, I guess, because I respect what Bob has done very much. And I find, although as a feminist, I have set my political agenda in a different way, I value his thinking and his leadership. He has lots of good ideas, and I think he deserves to be highly respected, and has, over the years, which I've been, attending many of his speeches and meetings, held where we discuss them and so forth. So I'm pretty familiar with them. But as I say, I'm not focused on choosing, whether a socialist or a communist form of government would be the, part of the solution. I know it is, but I feel like I want to focus on getting women to be more equal at this point. But I want to throw in a little bit about Florence Kennedy. She was an attorney in this, second wave. And she talked about horizontal hostility. And really, this is what we're running into here. And people can, I guess, have called it cancel culture or whatever. It has become in vogue. But what it is just, it's giving people a very false sense that they can just sort of bully other people into thinking as they do and defining things and so forth, rather than putting out their ideas and letting them get tested. Mm-hmm. It just seems to be like who has the most, what do you call it? And when you say you like, how many likes you have. If you get 1 million likes, well, then you're going to win. Well, that's not true. Anyway, I mean, we have a battle to fight, and it's with people in power, people that are really wrecking our lives.
So, Carol, I have one last question I want to ask. You lived through the 1960s, the 70s, the period when both the high tide of revolution and women's liberation movements in this country, but also when there was tremendous government repression, which really has not stopped. But there were lessons learned with COINTELPRO, with some of the battles up against the force of the state. And I wonder if you have any perspective you want to share about the harm that this kind of attacks that have been waged against the TheRevcoms, against the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, against Rise Up for abortion rights, from others in the so-called movement, how this feeds into and sets a dangerous situation for that kind of repression.
We are on the cusp of this being the reality here. And it's just a very dangerous thing to be somehow indicating that some people are just not in the fold, and then you can go out and attack them and nobody will stick up for them. Nobody will try to bring them into this larger discussion, put them in like they're, and which of course never is correct. As I've just said, I mean, RCP has been right in the thick of things always. But it and any other organization that they deem to be dangerous suddenly becomes a target. And I think we have many, many martyrs, whether it's Fred Hampton, whether it's Martin Luther King. I mean, we've got enough to realize that, we just have to realize that the people that run this society are ruthless. They're organized. They have the power. And if you're paying attention to this latest Supreme Court decisions, you can see that they are laying the groundwork right in front of our eyes, for great repression. So it's essential for us to get more politically sophisticated. I do think some of this is just lack of historical memory. Maybe they think we made these things up. So to my mind, it was a very urgent way that a need for me to spend my time and energy was going after this baseless attack. Yeah.
Well, Carol, I really want to thank you for taking the time, spending the time responding to the attacks, setting a standard. It's incredibly important, and for taking the time to join us here on the Revolution Nothing Less show.
Okay, you're perfectly welcome. Enjoyed it.